For decades, one army had done what no other army could. It had swept across Asia with astonishing speed. Great cities had fallen, empires had collapsed. Many rulers believed that if the Mongols came for your land, defeat was only a matter of time. Their next target was Delhi. One decision made on a battlefield just north of the city would change the course of the invasion. That brings us to the winter of 1299. A massive cloud of dust rises across the plains north of Delhi. Thousands of horsemen race forward with terrifying speed. Arrows darken the sky. The army waiting to meet them has one chance to hold its ground. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. One of Delhi's greatest generals breaks formation and charges. For a few moments, it looks like he has won. But what happens next will decide the fate of the Delhi Sultanate. To understand how both armies arrived at this moment, we need to go back a few months. By the end of the 13th century, the Mongols had become the most feared military power in the world. From China to Eastern Europe, they had crushed kingdoms, destroyed great cities, and built a reputation that spread faster than their armies. For many rulers, resisting the Mongols seemed almost impossible. Northern India had already experienced several Mongol invasions. Most had been raids across the frontier. The attackers came for supplies, prisoners, and wealth before returning across the mountains. But the invasion of 1299 felt different. This time, the Mongol army did not stop near the border. It kept moving. The force was led by Prince Qutlugh Khwaja, the son of Dua Khan, ruler of the Chagatai Khanate. Medieval chroniclers claimed he commanded around 60,000 cavalry, although modern historians believe that number was probably exaggerated. Even if the army was smaller, it was still one of the strongest Mongol forces ever sent toward Delhi. As news of the invasion spread, panic followed. Villages emptied almost overnight. Merchants abandoned their caravans, while families fled toward Delhi with whatever they could carry. Everyone knew what had happened to cities that stood in the Mongols' path. No one wanted Delhi to become the next name on that list. Inside the capital, Sultan Alauddin Khalji faced the greatest test of his reign. He had taken the throne only a few years earlier and was still strengthening his rule. Now, he faced an enemy that had defeated far larger kingdoms than his own. His advisors believed the safest choice was obvious. Stay inside Delhi, close the gates, wait for the Mongols to exhaust their supplies. It was a strategy many medieval rulers had used successfully. Strong walls could defeat an invading army without risking a battle. But Alauddin saw a problem. A siege would not only threaten Delhi, it would threaten everything outside its walls. As long as the Mongols remained in the countryside, they could burn crops, seize food, destroy trade routes, and weaken the Sultanate without ever attacking the city itself. Even if Delhi survived, the kingdom around it might not. The Sultan reached a decision that shocked many in his court. He would leave the safety of the capital. He would fight the Mongols in open ground. It was one of the boldest decisions of his reign. Very few rulers willingly met the Mongols in battle. Their reputation alone had convinced many armies to retreat before a single arrow was fired. But Alauddin believed the greater danger was doing nothing. The Delhi army marched north and stopped near a place called Keeli, only a short distance from the capital. At first glance, Keeli looked like an ordinary plain. It wasn't. Alauddin had chosen the ground carefully. The Yamuna River protected one flank, while uneven terrain limited the sweeping cavalry maneuvers that had made the Mongols so dangerous. For once, the battlefield itself favored Delhi. As dawn approached, both armies prepared for battle. The Delhi army formed into a disciplined line. Alauddin took command of the center. Nusrat Khan led the left wing. Zafar Khan commanded the right. Ulugh Khan remained behind them, with reserve troops that could reinforce any part of the battlefield if needed. In front of the line stood one of the Sultanate's most powerful weapons, war elephants. Towering above the soldiers, they were designed to disrupt cavalry attacks before they reached the Delhi line. Horses that had never faced elephants often panicked before reaching them. Across the field, the Mongol army waited. Unlike the Delhi forces, they did not depend on heavy formations. Every warrior was a skilled horseman. Every rider carried a powerful composite bow, capable of striking targets while moving at full speed. Their greatest weapon was not strength, it was discipline. Alauddin understood the danger. Before the battle began, he gave every commander the same order: hold your position. No one is to chase a retreating enemy, no matter what happens. It sounded like an easy order to follow. The battle would prove otherwise. The first attacks came shortly after sunrise. Mongol horse archers swept forward in loose formations. Without stopping, they released volleys of arrows before turning away. Moments later, another group attacked from a different direction. Moments later, another attack followed. The sky filled with arrows. The attacks never seemed to stop. Instead of responding with reckless charges, the Delhi army stayed in formation. Shield walls held. The elephants remained steady. The cavalry waited. From the center, Alauddin watched every movement. He knew the Mongols were searching for one thing: a mistake. The battle settled into a tense rhythm. Attack, withdraw, attack again. Neither side managed to break the other. Hours passed. The Mongols increased the pressure. Still, the Delhi line refused to collapse. Then, on the right side of the battlefield, everything changed. Zafar Khan saw an opportunity. His cavalry struck hard against a Mongol force led by the commander, Hijlak. The attack was so fierce that the Mongols began falling back. Dust rose behind them as they retreated. For the soldiers riding with Zafar Khan, victory seemed only moments away. To his cavalry, the Mongol line finally seemed to be collapsing. Because the Mongols had won battles this way for generations, they called it a feigned retreat. They would appear to flee, tempting their enemy to chase them. Once the pursuit carried the attackers far enough from their own army, hidden cavalry would close in from every direction. Entire armies had been destroyed by this tactic. Zafar Khan was about to discover why it was so feared. Back in the center, Alauddin watched carefully. He knew this was the moment he had feared from the beginning. What looked like a retreat often marked the beginning of the real attack. Zafar Khan faced a choice: obey the Sultan's orders and stop, or finish what looked like a defeated enemy. He chose to charge. His cavalry thundered across the battlefield. The distance between him and the main Delhi army grew larger with every passing minute. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The Mongols continued to retreat, and suddenly they stopped. Fresh cavalry appeared through the dust on both sides. The trap had been waiting all along. Within moments, Zafar Khan and his men found themselves surrounded. The Delhi right wing had vanished into a ring of Mongol horsemen. Back at the center, Alauddin watched the dust cloud rising in the distance. He knew exactly what it meant, and now he faced the hardest decision of the entire battle. From the center of the battlefield, Alauddin Khalji could see the dust rising where Zafar Khan had disappeared. He did not need a messenger to tell him what had happened. He had seen this tactic before. The Mongols had drawn his general away from the main army. Now, they were trying to do the same to him. If he rushed forward with his reserves, the rest of the army could be pulled into the same trap. One wrong decision could destroy the Delhi Sultanate in a single afternoon. For a few moments, the battlefield stood still. Every commander waited for the Sultan's next order. It never came. Alauddin stayed where he was. No rescue force moved. It was a cold decision. It was also the only one that gave his army a chance to survive. Far from the main battlefield, Zafar Khan and his men fought alone. The Mongol circle tightened with every passing minute. Arrows struck from every direction. Whenever the Delhi cavalry tried to break through, fresh Mongol horsemen closed the gap. Medieval medieval chroniclers describe Zafar Khan refusing every chance to surrender. Whether every detail of those stories is true is impossible to know. What is clear is that he continued fighting until he was killed. Most of the men who had followed him never returned. His charge had ended exactly as the Mongols intended. But something unexpected happened. The victory the Mongols expected never arrived. They had destroyed one wing of the Delhi army. They had not destroyed the army itself. Alauddin's center remained exactly where it had been. No soldiers broke formation. No commander rushed forward in anger. The line held. But holding the line was only the beginning. The real test was still to come. That single decision changed the battle. The Mongols had spent valuable time surrounding Zafar Khan. Now they had to attack a fresh army that was still organized and ready. Prince Qutlugh Khwaja tried to seize the moment. His cavalry pushed toward the Delhi center, hoping to break it before the Sultan could recover. The attack was fierce. Horse archers rode forward, released volleys of arrows, then turned away before the Delhi cavalry could catch them. Again and again, they repeated the attack, but the battlefield no longer favored them. The ground around Keeli left less room for the wide movements that usually made Mongol cavalry so deadly. The Delhi formation remained compact. The elephants stayed in position. The reserve force stood ready behind the line. Every attack met disciplined resistance. Hours passed. Neither side could land the decisive blow. For perhaps the first time during the campaign, the Mongols faced something they rarely encountered: an enemy that refused to panic. As pressure increased on different parts of the line, Alauddin committed small groups from his reserve, exactly where they were needed. He did not order one massive counterattack. Instead, he strengthened weak points before they became dangerous. It was careful battlefield management rather than dramatic heroics, and that discipline slowly began to wear down the Mongol attack. Both armies suffered heavy losses. The exact numbers remain uncertain, as medieval chroniclers often exaggerated casualties. What historians do agree on, however, is that the fighting was fierce, and neither army escaped without paying a heavy price. The next turning point came soon after. During the campaign, Prince Qutlugh Khwaja was seriously wounded. Some historical sources suggest he received the wound during the Battle of Kili itself. Others simply state that he was injured during the retreat. The exact details remain uncertain. But what historians generally agree on is that the wound proved fatal. Without a decisive victory, the Mongol campaign had reached a dead end. The army had marched hundreds of kilometers into enemy territory. Supplies were becoming harder to secure. The Delhi army was still standing. The capital had not fallen. Continuing the campaign now carried greater risks than rewards. So the Mongols began their withdrawal. It was not a panicked escape. They remained disciplined until the very end. But they had failed to achieve their objective. Delhi had survived. For Alauddin Khalji, the battle marked one of the most important moments of his reign. He had faced one of the strongest military forces of the medieval world in open battle. His army had suffered painful losses. One of his finest generals had been killed. Yet the Sultanate still stood. The Battle of Kili did not end the Mongol threat. In fact, more invasions followed over the next few years. Each one reminded Alauddin that the frontier could never be ignored. He responded with sweeping military reforms. He expanded the standing army. He strengthened frontier defenses. He improved the system used to pay and maintain soldiers. He also introduced economic measures that helped support the enormous cost of defending the Sultanate. These reforms were expensive. Some were unpopular, but together they transformed Delhi into one of the strongest military powers in the region. Looking back, historians often remember two men from the Battle of Kili. One was Zafar Khan. His courage became legendary. Many later writers praised him as one of the bravest commanders of the Delhi Sultanate. The other was Alauddin Khalji. His reputation came from something very different: patience. He understood that a commander does not win every battle by making bold moves. Sometimes, victory comes from refusing to make the wrong one. That choice almost certainly cost Zafar Khan his life. But it may also have saved the Sultanate. The Battle of Kili offers a lesson that goes far beyond medieval warfare. Bravery alone is not always enough. Discipline can be just as powerful. A single charge can inspire an army. A single decision can save a kingdom. When the Mongols crossed the Indus in 1299, they carried the reputation of an empire that had conquered much of the known world. They expected another victory. Instead, they found an opponent who understood their methods and refused to fight on their terms. The Mongols would return. The struggle between the Delhi Sultanate and the Steppe Empire was far from over. But on the fields of Keeli, one message became clear. The Mongols were not invincible, and for the first time in years, the road to Delhi remained closed.